you can call a house high performance, but if you haven't actually run the testing on it, it's just a marketing slogan. If you've actually done a model and it is saying that it's using this amount of energy per year, per annum, per square meter, you can then go, okay, now it's high performing because I know. And it's just knowing. That was where I previously in my old business, sometimes it's just easy to bury your head because the information's too bad, but that's where you just cave in. So if you know, you know, and there's like, you can't unknow what you know. So if it's either right or wrong, and with Passive House, it's right. It has to be right.
G'day guys, welcome back to another episode. My name is Luke. I'm joined by my co-host Dean. We're in the Insite virtual studio this week. We are joined all the way from Launceston, Tasmania by Matt O'Grady, better known online as Mog Builds. Matt, welcome to the Insite podcast, mate. Absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, boys. It's good to finally catch up for a chat.
Yeah, I've definitely been on and offline, mate. Wanting to get you on here for a bit of a yarn for a while. I think we first crossed paths a couple of years ago now, I reckon, just out of, I suppose, mutual undertakings, what we're doing, and passions for Passive House and high performance, better building. Mate, look, I'd love to jump in and just hear, firstly, a bit of your backstory and where you kicked off from and where you are now, mate.
So it depends how far you want to go back, but I remember the time that I decided I'd go doing a building apprenticeship.
Birth, mate.
Birth, yeah. Yeah, there was the earth solidified out of molten lava. Yeah, I was about to join the army, and there was an ex-Air Force teacher, PE teacher, and I was like, oh, what do you reckon about this? He's like, just go get an apprenticeship first. Just do an apprenticeship. Anyway, I went and got an apprenticeship and then started chasing girls, and all of a sudden it was too hard to move away. So anyway, I started there and just done the most standard Australian apprenticeship you've ever done. I done my Cert 2 at TAFE, and then that meant I didn't have to do bugger all school in Cert 3. Yes, 3 it is, your apprenticeship, which looking back now is an absolute joke. You should be spending most of your time at school. So yeah, and just country building, you know, hanging off scaffold. If you had scaffold, if not, climbing up stuff. It was good. It was a really good apprenticeship. And then yeah, after that I had a bit of a break after my apprenticeship, and then yeah, started subbing. So pretty much after my apprenticeship, I've been working for myself. And then yeah, was subbing around, and my mate was starting a business, and we got chatting, and being young and dumb, we're like, oh, well, let's start a building company. It was about 22 at the time, I think, and yeah, just jumped in deep, and yeah, all of a sudden, it's I'm here through a whirlwind of adventures in between.
And mate, a few lessons learned. So you kicked off a few projects, and looking back, mate, like what was the road like? And obviously we all learned lessons along the way. What's some of the big ones you pulled out of your time?
Figure out how to make money is the biggest one. When we started, it was great, like just two young blokes having a crack, like, you know, you can get in and work as much as you want. And then we picked up a few decent houses and it was, you know, just standard Australian construction build. I didn't realise that there was a better way to build than the way I was taught. You know what I mean? Like, you just get some silver sarking on it and get going. And yeah, we picked up a few good jobs, and we're like, oh geez, we better get an apprentice. So we get an apprentice like everyone does, and it's like, oh, I better get a tradesman. You start growing, and one of the main lessons is learning how to grow with your business. And hand up, like we didn't grow with the business. We thought we could still just be young fellas having a good time while having employees and overheads, and didn't really understand that. You know what it's like when you get your builder's license, they give it to you, and then you're like, oh, all right, I'm a builder now, and you don't know the path of being a business owner. You can be the best chippy ever, but if you're don't know how to manage money, or you don't know how to run a business, it can fall over pretty quick. Not that it actually fell over and we ran into serious issues, but you know.
100%, mate. I think that's a thing where a lot of people go wrong, isn't it? They start to grow and
we ended up picking up we ended up doing, before COVID, it was a $1.3 million place on the east coast of Tassie, and you know, we went really well on that job. Like we thought we had it absolutely dialed. You know, when you get, and it's something I say a bit in builders, is you get a big job and you think you've made it, but then so you built this business around this big job, and then you don't have a big job to follow. You've got a couple of little ones, and that's when you start hemorrhaging money here and there. But anyway, I was like, okay, well, if this isn't working, I'm going to go get some business coaching. And then when I'd done the business coaching with Dwayne, it was with Live Life Build. That was the realization of, oh fuck! Like I was just like, I am so in deep with this that like I actually got really stressed out. I ended up hitting Dwayne up, and he had like the initial phone call with me, and I was like, look, don't worry about me, mate. I'm just a waste of time. All that, and like to his credit, he called me up like straight away. Just kept pocket dialing me, and I was like, oh, not pocket dialing me, he rang me a couple of times, and I've gone, oh shit, right, and he's talked about it, and we actually had a probably good hour conversation. I was like on the brink of breaking down effectively. I think within 3 weeks I lost about 8 to 10 kilos or something, like just stress to the max. Like, yeah, it was wild. But then he was kind of prepping me up to sort it out, keep going, keep fighting, which is very much Dwayne's way, which I absolutely appreciate. But I kind of had to, eat a bit of humble pie, and I wasn't owing any money. I had everyone paid, and I just decided, I'm just going to close this down. And from there, after a bit of turmoil, I was like, all right, time for your second apprenticeship, like time to do some proper learning. So where I'm at now is I've given myself 5 years to become a complete builder at the best I possibly can. So when I do go back into business, and I make no secret that I will be going back into business, but I'm well-rounded. I understand every aspect of it. And the first thing I started is like, these houses we're building are absolute rubbish. Like there's no thought in design. The last house I'd done was for my parents, the really nice house on the Tamar River. And I was like, this house is going to leak. There's no two ways about it's going to leak. So that's when I first run into Justin O'Connor. And I was like, I was on the phone to him, and he couldn't help me more. He was like, yeah, you got to get ventilation in your service cavity. And like, I'm learning all this on the fly. It cost me an absolute bomb to put ventilation in it just off the bat. But I was like, there's no way the last house I'm building is going to come back with mold issues. I'm going to have to fix it when I've got, no business. So, and from there, like from that point of when I said, all right, time to do some learning, you eat your humble pie, you put your ego aside, and I try and work on the basis of 66% listen and 33% talk, and like just listen to what everyone's got to say, and just do as much learning as you can, be a sponge. And it's like I've grown more in the last 18 months, 2 years, 18 months than I had in the previous 10 years of my building career. So it's been a really good change of life. At what was at the time the worst experience I've ever been through has now probably turned out, and I would love to change it and still be being a principal contractor, but I probably wouldn't change it because I'd never learn as much as I have.
Firstly, Bog, thank you so much for telling that story. Like that vulnerability, I think there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that are probably resonating with them a lot at the moment. What, if we just jump back to when you first decided to actually reach out to a bit of business coaching, like what was not necessarily the turning point, but what made you reach out specifically to a builder's business coach? Did you like kind of have someone that was already doing it that suggested, or how did you come across or knew that that's what you needed?
I was, I stumbled into it. I was just like, what I used to try and do everything. It was the same story across the board with every builder you've ever talked to. So you try and be Matt from marketing, Matt from admin, Matt from construction, Matt from pre-construction, Matt from bloody thinking he can run a business that's turning over millions of dollars, when all of us, like you've hardly even had $100,000 in your bank before. You're like, all right. so I was like, well, I need to find someone who can help me with these systems and processes. I probably didn't even know that term at the time, but that's just a business coaching term, systems and processes. But once I realized that, I was like, oh yeah, okay. So there's steps, because I had everything all up in here, but it's like, all right, here's the formula to get someone on pre-construction, because it was starting to stress me out. I'd have people coming around and you're doing free quotes. You're quoting 9 houses and maybe getting one, and then but you want to put the same amount of effort into everyone, and you eventually get run down. You're just like, I don't know if I can quote another. I don't know if I can chuck another 100 hours into another pre-con without getting paid. And then I think it might have been online. I seen pack process, and I was like, oh, what's this? And I was like, oh shit, there's a way. So, but like, yeah, there's a million different coaches, and there's more and more every day you look. But like, just Dwayne and Amelia, not that I stuck around long, and I would like to go back, and I will go back and finish that course. But I'm like, I'm not ready to do that course, because I need to be a more well-rounded individual before I take that course on and start being responsible for my own builds again.
Yeah, the amazing thing is that you just covered off there so many points, mate. But, going back to the whole builder's licensing, we've all done it, the three of us sitting here. And, realistically, we're all in 3 different states right now too, so there might be some variations. But I still remember going through, I think it was about 23. I was pretty young as well. So there's so much looking back on it that, you really should have to do maybe some more courses and stuff before you get that ticket, as it would avoid so much pain and heartache. And I suppose for the listeners, like the business coaching, it can be building style coaching, business coaching, go and learn how to do contracts properly. It's crazy. There's just no real boxes to tick for that.
I need to jump in here for a minute, guys, to thank our sponsors, Backman Builders and Calorie Building. Without the support of these businesses, the Build Insight podcast wouldn't be possible. Take a moment to go and show some support for them so they can continue to support us, bringing you the Build Insight podcast.
Yeah, it's in my Cert 4, they didn't mention overhead once. Like, it was all 10% margin. And so the first 2 jobs, we done this massive deck. And then we done this big set of concrete stairs, just a couple of young fellas. We done that on 10%, and we'd just bought all our insurances. We just bought tool trailers. You go buy some tools and that. And we'd like a fair we had, when we started, we had low overheads, but we didn't cover a cent of it. We thought we'll make them packets because we had 10% on a job. Well, like, how good's this? And then, looking back on it, you're like, you idiots. Like, well, I don't know, it's probably the idiot that gave us the ticket, because like we shouldn't have had it. But we just didn't know enough. And like, when you're being responsible with that sort of coin, like I think there should be a couple of courses that should be like just a money management course, because you give these kids who couldn't pay attention at school, so you go out on site, then you go back to school and you still probably can't pay attention, and then you're just like, all right, there's $1 million, make sure you build the house for it. Then you're like, all right, yeah. But yeah, that's when I was, but you also, it's like when you're early 20s, you can take on the whole wide world. It's like only a reflection of my late 20s that I was like, all right, time to sort this out.
Funny you mentioned the 10%, mate. We had an inquiry come through, probably, it was a few weeks ago now, but it was a really, really old lead. Like, the lead was from, I think it was nearly 5 or 6 years ago. And we stumbled back across some of the original systems, like in our very, very unorganized Google Drive folder from back in sort of whenever it was. And yeah, found one of the original spreadsheets that I used to quote on, same thing. Like, looking back at it, and how the hell anyone ever made any money out of it, or how we still got through to where we are. It's embarrassing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And that's where I got to. There's like, I had a build lined up, contract signed, and I was about to step into it again, and I was like, I just didn't have the overhead right. I didn't have the pre-construction right. Because when you're that thinly stretched, you do everything poorly. You don't do anything well. So I got into it, and I just finished the build, and I it was actually pretty hard because I broke some hearts. I just said, sorry, I can't build your house. Like, and it's probably the best thing I ever done, but it was probably one of the hardest things I had to deliver to a client because I am a people pleaser. So to say that to a client, sort of, it was pretty shit. And then like obviously I had 2 employees, three employees, had to find them other jobs. And then sort of shut it all down. It was you sort of learn how to be you learn how to not have an ego pretty quick, because if you do, like, you're just gonna fall in a heap. So, but it was a great learning experience, and I think if I had kept going, I would have never got to the point where I had so rapidly. I feel like I'm a lot further ahead, and at some point, I'm not sure what that point is yet. I'm looking forward to jumping back in and building a new fresh business that's profitable and delivers like state of the art energy efficient homes, or comfort homes, and then you accidentally get energy efficient. So,
do you want to give us a bit of insight on what you're up to at the moment, mate? So you obviously you wound up the building company. You currently work for quite a well-known builder in Tassie at the moment. Tell us a bit about what your current role is, what you're building, a bit of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so at the minute, it was funny, Kyle and I were both going through a bit of shit at the same time, and so we did bond on that. Like, you listen to anything sort of him, he's pretty open about how his journey, and we sort of we're sort of running pretty parallel at a couple of times, and I decided to peel off, and he decided to charge on, which is absolute credit to him. Takes a lot of gusto to head down and keep going. So I jumped in with KZ, and so I've jumped on as project manager there, and then sort of worked my way up through there, and we've got a great working relationships, and so now I'm senior project manager, so I'm, as well as taking care of the more junior project managers, sort of guiding them through the build process. Effectively, we're acting as, like, we've got our own crews, and we're acting as a small builder ourselves, which is great. And then we're checking in with the company and just keeping our projects running. Got a lot of autonomy, which is great. And then so I'm building a super architectural house. I don't know if you've seen my page, it's that real rocky one. Was blasting rock for about 2 months. So that was something in itself. But it's great, like that, working with a great architect, Align Architecture, and that house you've got your triple glazed windows, HRV, airtight. It doesn't have an internal air barrier, which if it did, it would have been absolutely unreal, but not to be. But the level of finish in that house is insane, and it's really getting my brain tickling on that. So it's probably a higher spec than I ever would like to build again. I'll definitely do it again, but like, it's great to be able to build to that high of a spec and then bring it back down to somewhere where I like to be, because then your attention for detail is absolutely unreal. And then we're kicking off another big certified passive house in the same town that I'm building at the minute. So 5 minutes from work, which will be unreal. So I do that, and I also work with Justin O'Connor at PHCP, who's the absolute guru as far as pro climber. So I do the northern state. I do north of Tasmania. I do the install trainings around. So if we get a new builder on board who's new to the pro climber product, I'll jump in and do like either a WRB install or a window install or an internal air barrier install, and sort of consult on that level as well, which has been great. Justin we sort of met right at the end of my business, and he's tucked me under his wing and just absolutely fed me opportunities left, right, and centre. Like, I'm selling SPAC screws now through him. Like, so I was trying to find a screw that would be compliant with the Australian standard, because I was sick of getting pulled up by building surveyors trying to screw instead of strap studs. And I tried to order some off Justin. He goes, "Yeah, I've ordered a whole truckload if you want to sell them." I'm like, "Oh, I'll give it a go. I'll say yes to anything." Like, just a bit of young hustle. And so I've sort of been working with Spax and ProClimber and sort of those great German brands, and learning the networking that comes around that has been unreal between engineers, figuring out what a screw actually does is insane, and then figuring out how membrane actually works. You're like, there's so much in building that it will, like, if you come in and you're like, oh, it's sticks and mortar, it can be sticks and mortar, but if you actually figure out how a building work, it's like a living organism on you. It's like part of the family. It's living, it's breathing, you're trying to make it last, and the less amount of maintenance you can do, the longer it's going to last.
Yeah, mate, I want to know when you actually sleep, Mog, because you're building your own house too at the moment, mate. So it's hats off to you. Mate, let's...
not much sleep going on at the minute.
Nah, it's all right, mate. So, Mog, mate, I wanted just to wind it back a little bit. So in the midst of closing down the old business and figuring out your next steps, you fell down the rabbit hole, mate, of Passive House, and we touched on that a bit. We had a chat before we jumped on air, but what was the culminating factor for you, mate, getting to that point and discovering Passive House? What was the where'd you go from?
I came from water fucks buildings, so I was building, like I was saying before, I was building my parents' place, and I was just using rubbish membranes. I actually remember my hardware rep calling me. He goes, oh, this wrap here is on sale if you want that. And I was like, bring her in. I'll save a buck. And then started wrapping the place up, and I started reading the logo, and I was like, oh, there's actually a fair bit that goes into this. And I actually used to see Sean from like Tassie Builders blog. I used to see him on Instagram taping everything up, and I was like, look at this idiot wasting a heap of time. So anyway, and then I was talking to one of my other good builder mates, and I was like, do you reckon that's a waste of time? And he's like, no, it isn't. And then I looked into it, and I'd done just the basic moisture management course through Master Builders, and I've gone, oh shit, this is the start and stop of building. It's like, if you can't manage moisture, you may as well not be building it. So it actually came from a perspective of risk mitigation. Like I was like, if we're building these houses, we cannot be setting ourselves up for failure. It's like, you could be using the most eco-friendly products you want in the world. If you want to call yourself a sustainable builder, which you see on the back of everyone's ute, if you want to call yourself a sustainable builder, you can be using all these eco products, but if your house rots, it's going to last 20 years and it's all going to be in landfill anyway. So why don't you build a house out of whatever you want? It's great if you're using sustainable products, but if it's going to last generational, then that's my opinion of sustainability, is something that will last. Pay once, cry once, you know what I mean? So so it's gone from that, and then that's how I actually started talking to Kyle. Is Sean and Kyle, when Sean was working for Kyle, we sat down, we actually caught up, and was just like, all right, what's this whole thing about moisture management and buildings? Started talking to Justin, and I've got a very obsessive personality. So once I latch onto something, like, I'm not letting go till I know everything about it, and I'm still learning things about it, and which is great, because it's just every day is learning, and you know, I've got people asking me about it now, but I'm still got my peers that I'm pulling information from, and it's just it's a great way of networking. Like, the people I've met through it is great. But yeah, and then from there you're like, oh well, what's the pinnacle of that? And it's Passive House. So what I hated about building previously is it's so all over the place. Like, you get a slab inspection, a frame inspection, and a practical completion. There's no rules. It's the Wild West. But where you lose money and you lose the integrity of the building is in the margins. This is the bits that, you know, I went through a house that I built with a thermal camera, and you could see where the sparkies had pulled all the insulation out just to fit a duct in. And it's just gone. I was like, oh, now that's a cold spot. But before, I would have been like, oh, better, you know, he had a price that he had to work to. But now I'd like absolutely, I'd lose my nana if I seen that. And like, my subbies know that I'm like an absolute anal freak when it comes to insulation. Like I will move heaven and high earth to have continuous insulation. But yeah, from there, but what I like about Passive House is there's no hiding in the margins. It's all tested, it's all verified. You either get the tick or you don't. So when you deliver a house to a client, you can be like, there it is, it's done, like I said it would. There's no argument. It's all tested. You can call a house high performance, but if you haven't actually run the testing on it, it's just a marketing slogan. If you've actually done a model and it is saying that it's using this amount of energy per year, per annum, per square meter, you just you can then go, okay, now it's high performing because I know, and it's just knowing. Like that was where I previously in my old business, sometimes it's just easy to bury your head because the information's too bad, but that's where you just cave in. So if you know, you know, and there's like, you can't unknow what you know. So if it's either right or wrong, and with Passive House, it's right. It has to be right. So that's what I like about it.
Yeah, it's got so many benefits to it. And how are you guys finding a Passive House in the last few years in Australia's like grown obviously a lot of legs, and for good reason? How are you finding Tasmanians, the homeowners and clients that is there a lot of educating that needs to happen, or due to the climate, do you think it's something that's really wanted now?
It's a mixed bag. So you either get some clients that come to you and be like, I had one recently, and I'll go, okay, well, it was in a pre-con meeting. And I was like, what are you concerned about on your house? Are you concerned about what it's made of? Are you concerned about what it looks like? And she goes, all I want is a plaque on my wall. And I was like, all right, well, we can start there. I was like, that's fine. We can start there. And we're looking at kicking that one off in the new year. And then it's like, I'm finding that a lot of people who have a new house are always saying, I wish I had have known about this.
Build Insight listeners, that's the end of part 1 with our mate Mog. What an episode. We can't wait to bring part 2 to you next Monday. Tune in then.
Let's cue the disclaimer. I need to let you know that myself and the Build Insight team are in no way, shape or form qualified to give you personal or specific business advice. We strongly encourage you seek out the use of professionals for products or when you are making personal or business decisions. Everything discussed during the Build Insight podcast is our own and the guest opinion and personal experience and is of a general nature only. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Catch you on the next one.